Greetings, everybody. I hope this message finds you well and that you are having a wonderful summer and your family are safe and healthy at this point in time. I want to provide you with a brief update on the Rome City School District's reopening plan and some of the steps and processes that are ongoing and what you might be able to expect in the coming weeks as we prepare for the reopening of schools. Before I do that, I first want to thank our entire community for your patience, your understanding, and your collaborative efforts throughout this whole process. We have a tremendous community here in Rome that has worked very tirelessly to keep each other informed, provide suggestions and support for each other as we go through this experience together. As we build our plan, I can tell you that we've had over 70 people working on different various parts of this. And without that collaboration, we will not be able to get to a point where we can submit a viable plan to the governor's office this coming Friday. What I would say as we move forward in the coming weeks and months is that flexibility is going to be one of the most important things for all of us as we enter the 2020-2021 school year. There are a lot of unknowns that sit here today, and as we come closer to bringing kids back to our schools in September, those unknowns may even grow. As we move through the school year, there's going to need to be a lot of flexibility on the behalf of our students, unfortunately, our staff, and our families, as we learn together the things that we're going to be faced with when we start trying to enter a new world of instruction with all of the health and safety protocols and obviously concerns that people are going to have. So I can't stress enough that flexibility is of the utmost importance for all of us, and patience with that flexibility and understanding is that we are all going through this together. And no other community in the history of our country has gone through the building of a school environment relative to COVID-19. So if we can continue that flexibility and support for each other, we're going to be in good shape. The main purpose of our video today is to spend a few minutes simply providing you with an overview of our full district reopening plan. We are coining our reopening plan, Redefining Opportunities for Meaningful Education here in Rome. This is an opportunity in the history of education to redefine how school looks for kids, to redefine how students are engaged in their learning process, and redefine how we are evaluating learning and truly making it student-centered and individualized for every student throughout. Within this video, it would take several hours to go through the entire plan thoroughly, and what I would encourage all of you to do is when you have a chance to review the entire plan, it will be roughly 90 pages of reading, which is cumbersome, but there's a lot of information in there that is both required from the state of New York and informative for you. So our purpose today is to provide you a few minutes of what to expect in that plan, the key highlights and bullet points. I'm not going to touch on all of the health and safety requirements of the plan. That is substantive, and it's something that really I'm going to encourage you to read as you see the plan. First and foremost, the process of what's going to occur in the coming weeks. In the first 2 weeks of August, the district will ask families to fill out what we call an instructional model request form. This form will provide the district with an understanding of which method of instruction you prefer your student to be engaged in. And those three models would be either full in-person learning, hybrid learning, or remote learning. Those forms we're going to ask to be completed no later than August 14th, at which point we can make a determination if our facilities can hold the capacity for students that want to attend in person. As we speak today, we feel pretty confident that we will be able to offer a full in-person instructional model for students that prefer to be in person pre-K through grade 6. But those numbers will be determined based on the final responses that we receive on that instructional model request form. Two things of note relative to that form in the coming weeks. First and foremost, any student or family that does not respond to that form, the district is going to interpret that non-response as a family that prefers in-person learning experiences. And second, and most importantly, relative to that, the responses to this form coming out will be binding for at least the first semester of the 2020-2021 school year. The purpose of them being binding is simply in that once we set our buildings and we set our capacities, we are not going to have much wiggle room to move kids from an remote learning model to an in-person learning model, okay? It's just simply something that we got to make sure that we can fit the kids in the buildings and keep that as static as possible. We do plan to reevaluate our capacity levels in January of 2021, and a lot other can change besides just that relative to governor's requirements, state education department requirements, and so forth. So be on the lookout for that form to come out early August, and please ask to get that completed by August 14th. The three options that we are looking at relative to instructional models are the in-person, remote, and hybrid, and they are slightly different for our elementary students, which are pre-K through grade 6, and our secondary students, which are grades 7 through 12. In referencing the elementary grade levels, we do believe that we have enough capacity to offer in-person learning for all those students that prefer the in-person learning model. We are going to give families the choice whether or not they want to have their kids in person or remote. For elementary schools, we would only use hybrid model if we don't have the capacity in our buildings to accommodate all of the folks that want in person. I would tell you, based on our preliminary survey information from a few weeks ago, we are very close to being able to allow in-person, but also very close to being pushed over the edge to being forced into hybrid. If we can accommodate in-person learning would be 5 days a week. Students that prefer to be in the buildings would be in their building that they came from in the spring. All the buildings will remain K6 in their current locations. There will be no shuffling of grade levels, no shuffling of buildings around the district, and we will not be utilizing Stroud Middle School as an instructional space for elementary students. That was talked about at one point in time. The remote learning model is fairly straightforward. Remote learning is any student that prefers to learn from home and does not want to enter the buildings. In that case, learning would be similar to the spring, however, it will be much more structured, much more synchronous, and the process will be a little bit more planned out for students learning remotely. The hybrid model at the elementary level, if we're required to go to hybrid, and again, hybrid would only be enacted if our building capacities cannot hold the students that prefer to be in person. The hybrid model will only happen at that point in time, and a hybrid model will look very similar to this. On a Monday, all students would be learning remotely, and Monday would be an opportunity for teacher collaboration. They will engage with the students on Monday, get them caught up to speed on what to expect for the week to come, prepare them for any other things they might have, and also provide one-to-one instruction for any student that might need it relative to a certain topic or subject area. Tuesday and Wednesday would be cohort number 1 or cohort letter A. So students in group A would go to school in person on both Tuesday and Wednesday. Students in group 2 or letter B would go to remote learning for Tuesday and Wednesday. Then we would flip-flop those cohorts for Thursday and Friday. So the way the schedule would look for a hybrid model at the elementary level would be Monday completely remote for everybody. Tuesday, Wednesday, half the group is in person, and then Thursday, Friday, that in-person group would shift to remote learning, and there would be the vice versa for the other side. Those are the three options at the elementary level at this point in time. For secondary students, it's a little bit easier only because we do not have the capacity at RFA and Stroud to accommodate any form of full-time in-person 5-day-a-week learning. So the two options we have for secondary are full remote learning, meaning you're volunteering to learn from home the entire time, which again will be more structured, more synchronous, set schedules, a lot more parameters involved with that process. Or the hybrid model that I just talked about at elementary would be similar at the secondary level. Monday would be a full remote learning day for teacher collaboration. The teachers will engage with the students to prepare them for the week to come. Opportunity for tutoring, kind of one-on-one service providers, those types of things on a Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday will be half of the students that are preferring to learn in person. They will be in person Tuesday, Wednesday. They will be home remotely on Thursday and Friday. And again, it will flip-flop half the students in Group A and then a Group B to follow. One nice thing about the hybrid model, if we are forced to go hybrid for elementary, we will make sure to the best of our ability that we line it up so that a family has a very similar schedule. So if you're a family with students in both secondary and elementary, your students will all go to school in person on the same day and will all be home on the same day. One of our priorities for our guiding mission for developing our plan was the understanding and concern over child care for families. And we're doing everything we can to mitigate concerns related to child care as we develop our plan and our schedule. Again, those decisions relative to what the final schedule will look like will be made in August, following the surveying of students and families to understand which instructional model they will prefer. The plan details all of this in much greater detail, and I can't encourage you enough to make sure you read the entire plan. Some other areas of interest that I'm sure people want to know about and information related to our transportation and meal service, food service. Transportation is a challenge still. We do believe we'll be able to transport 22 students at a time, but our ability to transport won't be determined until, again, we know how many students are planning on attending school. If all of our students pre-K-12 are a hybrid model, transportation will not be an issue. If we have elementary full in-person, transportation could become an issue simply because we'll have more students to transport. How that ties into the instructional day is transportation may or may not adjust the timeframes in which we start and end school. What I can tell you that we've learned from the spring, our secondary students tend to want to engage in the learning process a little bit later in the morning, and we are going to try to build schedules that accommodate a later start time for secondary students as much as we can. The teaching staff felt very strongly that students seem to be more engaged in the late morning, afternoon process than at the typical 7:30 start time for secondary students. At the elementary level, we're doing our best to maintain our start and end times of 9:10 and 3:10 for the coming school year. What I will tell you at this point in time is that our elementary students will not be in school any less for in-person instruction than they were before. If there's a way to extend those parameters a little bit to help with childcare, we are investigating that, but at this time, I cannot make any final determinations on that. But transportation is directly connected to the number of students that prefer to learn in person, and transportation needs will, to some degree, dictate our start and stop times for this coming school year. Another area of importance is food service and meals. At the shutdown of schools in March, there was an executive order that provided all students in the school district free meals, breakfast, and lunch. That provision is ending, and as of the start of the 2020-2021 school year, that eligibility is no longer there. The free and reduced lunch program still is available. I encourage all families, regardless of what you think your status is, to apply for that program simply for the benefit and to see if you qualify for the benefit. We are looking at applying for the community feeding program that is eligible, and what that would allow the district to do is serve free breakfast and lunch to all students 5 days a week through the community eligibility program. It's a federal program that allows us to do that. One of the keys to the community eligibility program and this benefit is that we do need high participation numbers to offset the cost that the district might incur to do that. So we are confident that we could be successful in the community eligibility program for feeding our students. It will be a tremendous benefit to our students and families, as we don't have to worry about accounting for who is receiving food and who is not. And what it also would allow us to do is, when we're serving meals, our model right now, what we plan to do is, when a student enters the building, they'll go to their classroom. As of right now, we plan on having all lunch services done in the classroom to minimize traffic in the cafeteria, minimize the need to have to clean the cafeteria, and keep kids together as much as possible. Might be a little bit different for the secondary level depending on schedules. However, the goal is to try and keep kids in classrooms as much as possible. The lunch would be brought to the student's classroom. They would eat lunch in the classroom. Breakfast would be done in the manner that while students are leaving the building, we will be providing them with a bagged breakfast for the following day. So on any given day, students will be given 2 meals. One would be lunch at lunchtime, and one would be breakfast at dismissal, with the idea that the student would then eat their breakfast in their home on the following morning. And what that does for the school district is it provides one less opportunity or one less requirement to clean our classrooms, one less opportunity for exposure of a potential illness within the building, and will really save a lot of time and supplies relative to cleaning for our buildings. As of today, that is our plan for transportation and meal service. And that leads me into my next topic is what is next? The first thing I would tell you is anything I've talked about so far and anything you read in the plan may be subject to change. There's a lot of things that are still outside of our control as school leaders and school communities. We are required to submit our plan by the end of July to the Department of Health and the State Education Department, at which point the governor has announced that he will make a determination of what schools will look like before August 7th. So everything we're talking about right now could change drastically within the first 7 days of this process of August. And it probably will change before the end of August. It will probably change again in September, again in October. I can't reiterate enough to everybody that flexibility as we go through this process is going to be key. There's no way that we can put everything in writing that we're going to do. And a lot of things that we're going to have to do, we don't even know about yet, because until we start bringing kids into the building and doing that work in person, we're not going to be able to learn about some of those hidden or unknowns. Again, I can't reiterate enough that I really need folks to do their best, take the time to read the document, learn about what's in there, continue to ask your questions, be flexible, understand that there are more questions than there are answers. Similar to March when we started, I understand your heads are spinning. The people that have been working on this plan for the past several months, I can guarantee you that our heads have been spinning, and every time we meet, by the end of our meeting, we felt like we've gone backwards instead of forwards because we have more questions ourselves than we had started with when we met. So please understand, everything will continue to be a work in progress. Patience, collaboration, support for each other is going to be key if we get through this. We are much better and smarter together as a community than we are with a group of individuals wanting to attack each other for different reasons relative to our personal beliefs related to the situation. We all have our opinions, we all have our beliefs, and we're entitled to those. However, we do get to choose how we treat each other, and if we can maintain the great respect and collaboration we've had for each other since March, Rome City School District will emerge on top of this as an ideal district in the state of New York relative to how we're handling the situation. Lastly, for more information, we are creating a website at www.romecsd.org/reopening. And that website will have a lot of the information, our update videos, links for our health surveys that will be required for families to take once a week for their students. The full document plan will be on that website. Different other resources, helpful hints for parents, for students, for staff will be on that website. I encourage you to visit that website frequently when you have questions. There also will be a frequently asked questions portion of that webpage. We are currently in development of that. And we do intend to have a frequently asked questions for families and a separate frequently asked questions for staff, as the question streams are very different of each other. If you do have questions relative to anything reopening, we have instituted an email, which is rcsdreopening@romecsd.org. That email address is on our webpage. We have had several community members frequently using the email, which I thank you for doing that. Your questions that come through, we get our best to answer them for you directly, but also we add them to our FAQ documents so the entire community can have those questions. I guarantee you the questions you have are questions that other people have. So please take the time to submit your questions and your concerns, and we will do our best to address this as we go through. In closing, I want to say thank you one more time to our entire community, to our school staff who have been working tirelessly throughout the summer to provide the best possible plan with the most safety and sensibility for our students and staff that we can possibly provide. This has not been an easy process from March till now. If you think about the reality, we have been out of school now for longer than any other stretch of time in history. The longest time most of us have experienced being away from a school or our jobs or our kids for school is the 2 months in the summer. And we now are approaching 5 months and will be approaching 6 months by the time we re-enter school in September. This is an unprecedented time, but we are getting through thanks to the support of each other, working together, understanding that we are building this as we move, and that continued desire to be the best from our community and our school district will help us get to the end of this successfully and safely. Thank you all once again. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care.